Shalom, beloveds of the King. I greet you all in this, from this beautiful place where we are out here enjoying the tranquility and the peace, being surrounded by these beautiful mountains, which they named Drakensberg, which the Father renamed Mount Tabor. So praise the Father. It's so beautiful to be out in the bush, out in tranquility, being surrounded by nature, and just being able to come in this day and being able to be set apart to the Father on the Shabbat, and just be able to sit out here and look at these beautiful mountains and feel the beautiful breeze. Even though it's very hot, we've got this beautiful, it's more like a wind that is here to be able to just come and cool down the air. And how beautiful it is for me to be able to sit here in this Shabbat morning and come before you all and be able to have Abba give us the message that he has to share with us in this day on our Shabbat Torah portion reading of Vayigash. He approached. And so we continue with our Torah portion readings because we are in a prophetic time, we are in a prophetic season, and every single Shabbat reading that we have started reading, even from the last Torah portion readings that we were reading, and since the beginning of this year, it's like every single Torah portion reading is speaking directly to our circumstances and to where we find ourselves and where we are. And how amazing it is that this Torah portion reading, as we are in this silly season, is what I call it, a silly season of this Christmas season where people overspend and they buy gifts with money that they don't even have and get themselves further into debt, and where people are celebrating a time of where it's such pagan holiday. But then again, how can we blame people for doing customs and traditions that they don't know the origins from? They just do what they've been told. I mean, it was so funny because we just were walking earlier and we came past the one chalet here, because we are camping, but there's chalets and there's a whole family of Muslims, and they were talking about Christmas, and I thought, yo, can you imagine Christmas, that they would even talk about Christmas? It just shows you that it's pagan, because they celebrate a Christmas, not about a birth of a Messiah, but it's because it's a pagan feast of giving presents, of a Santa Claus, of feasting and holidaying and family gathering. That's really what it's about. And at the end of the day, if I look at my family, my brothers and them, I mean, they don't do anything that's religious about it. They don't do anything that's got anything to do with the Messiah. And so it's no different to what it was with the winter solstice, of when they celebrated Nimrod and Tammuz and Semiramis and all the gods of Egypt already from them. So nothing has changed. But praise the Father that there has to be light, and there has to be a remnant that needs to raise up, whom the Father sends ahead, to be able to be a light for a family that might even be lost. And so today we're going to look at this Torah portion reading, being able to understand it, where we find ourselves in the world today. Where are we in this time? What are we heading into? as the world is about to, in the next few days, by next week, they are going to celebrate a Gregorian New Year, and everybody excited to put 2020 behind us, and wow, let us look forward to 2021. But what does 2021 have in store for us as we end a Torah portion reading? This would be the last Torah portion reading for this Gregorian calendar. So if we read the Torah portion reading of the last Torah portion reading for this Gregorian calendar, what does it show us in what's to come? Because it speaks volumes to us in what is ahead of us. Wow, listen to that thunder in the distance of where there's a rain that's going to come. May Abba water this land, and as He waters the land, may He water the thirsty people that are truly seeking His face. And so we're going to look at this Torah portion reading, so let us pray. Abba Yehovah, I just want to thank You. I thank You for this time that we find ourselves in, and that in the midst of a storm that lies ahead of us, in the midst of calamity, in the midst of famine, You have gone ahead of us. You will have a remnant of people, Abba. You will have a people who is going to bring glory and honor to Your name. That in all times, throughout all the generations, You have always had a remnant of people. Even in the time of the Holocaust, when there was such destruction and death that was coming upon a people, to be able to annihilate them. But You made sure that Your people were to be able to be spared a remnant, so that there would be a house of Yehudah that would be left. And even in the house of Israel that has been sent into the nations, that has gone into the dispersion, that has been totally led astray by idolatry and by religious customs and traditions and everything else that has been given us, that has just, instead of taking us closer to You and into Your ways, has taken us further away into religion and what religion has to give us, and how you can't even tell the difference today between a Christian and a non-believer. Like this morning, Dylan saying, oh, the people that are right behind us, they are Christian. And I said, how do you know? No, you just need to, they've got some music that they were playing, and I heard their conversation where they were talking about church. But just 2-3 nights ago, they were playing such foul jokes with such disgusting language that one would not want to hear that. So my thing was, Abba Father, if people were to look at our lives, can they see the difference between one who is truly Yours from one from the world? We've become so integrated, Abba Father. Your people have become, those who call themselves by Your name, called Christians, have become so integrated into the world that you cannot tell the difference between one who is truly a believer, who believes in You, and one from the world. And that is what's so sad. What makes us set apart? What makes us different? Why was Joseph different? You chose Joseph, Father. And I thank You that if it was not for Joseph being chosen, there would not have been a remnant that would have survived from the house of Israel. And so in this day and age that we're living in, You are looking for a remnant who is going to be saved out of families that have gone ahead, to be able to truly know Your ways and to truly be able to speak Your oracles and to be able to stay faithful to You, so that they too can become a light for their families. And that which the enemy has meant for bad, and all the persecution that we've had to go through, and all that people would want to say about us and speak about us, a day will come, Father, when you will raise up your remnant as you did Joseph, and they will know that you are the great I am, the one who has gone before, the one who has put your seal, the one who will be seen through those who will carry your presence, because truly you are looking for a remnant who's going to become a tabernacle that will carry your presence. The restoration of the tabernacle of David. And so I thank you, Father, for this Torah portion reading, that we will be able to hear your heartbeat through it, and that you will open up our spiritual ears and our spiritual eyes to the prophetic insight that you want to give us in this day. May we be those that will truly be set apart unto you. May we be those that will have clean hands and a pure heart. May we be those that will truly seek your purposes and your plans above everything else. May we be those that people will look upon us and say, wow, we can truly see that that person is different. We can truly see that that person goes about life differently. We can truly see that that person is one who is set apart from the world. And Abba, I truly pray that you will help us. Some of us are to be Josephs to those around us. And so I pray that you help us to walk in the fullness of what you have called and ordained for our lives. Each one of us might have a different call, but at the end of the day it all boils down to the same thing. We are to be forerunners that are to be able to be a light that needs to shine for the glory and the honor of your name, so that you may be glorified, and that we may become those vessels that carry your presence. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you that I can commit this time to you right now. In Yeshua's name, may your name be glorified through everything of what we are about to speak and share. Abba bless you. Shalom. So, we just praise Abba Father for this time and for this day. And as we read through this Torah portion reading, and as we look through this Torah portion reading, it's so significant, as this Torah portion was really written to people to really understand that Father has got a plan. He's had a plan from the beginning. And I love this Torah portion reading, because this Torah portion reading brings such soothing words to the very core of my being when I think of the persecution that we've had to go through, that I am still going through. Even in the decisions that I make in order to be able to obey the Father, there's always a persecution. If you have gone and you have stepped out and you have obeyed the Father in what He's told you to do, there will be persecution. And it's interesting, because it will always be your own family that will persecute you. They do not always understand. They do not always understand your call. They do not always understand the walk that you have to walk. And because of that, there's going to be persecution. And even right now, even in my own life, in the decision of what the Father told me to do, in terms of laying down my crown of my flesh, in terms of my hair, that's brought to persecution all of its own. And even though, as much as I'm trying to embrace this, and it's not an easy thing to embrace, what makes it more difficult is the fact that there will be those that are going to persecute you for what you've done. And it will always come from your own family members. And that's exactly what it was with Joseph. His own family members sold him into slavery. Not understanding Father's plan, but being part of Father's bigger plan. And may this be an encouragement for you today, as we read through this Torah portion reading, may this be an encouragement for you today, because you know what? Your one act of obedience, or your one bit of persecution, or whatever the plan and the purpose that the Father has got for your life in what He's asking you to do, and where you've had to obey the Father when it hasn't made sense, and your family members or those around you or colleagues or whatever it is, or people in the church that you used to be in the decisions that you've made. I mean, mine has been a journey that, oh my goodness, it's been from one. If it wasn't just the family, then it had to be from the church and those around you. And you know, there's always a persecution that's going to come if you make a decision to be able to be faithful and be obedient. Obedience brings a blessing, but at the same time, those around you do not understand your obedience, and because they do not understand your obedience, there is an automatic persecution that comes, because all you want to do is be obedient. Joseph didn't understand when he was going to share his dream with his brothers, and he didn't understand when he was going to share his dream even with his father and his mother. He didn't understand. He was just sharing two dreams that he had with his relatives, and that didn't go down very well. And jealousy rose up, and everything else rose up. And how many of us, we've received prophetic word, we've received dreams, we've received visions, and it makes no sense, and it doesn't even look like it's even going to be possible for it to be able to be fulfilled. And I still think that there's some prophetic word that, just like the books of the prophets, there's prophetic word in the books of the prophets that's not even for this time, but for the millennial reign. That we do not see right now. We do not see the fullness of the house of Israel right now. We do not see the fullness of the two sticks becoming one. As a matter of fact, we see Judah trying to keep his brother Joseph. He was the one who sold him out. And still today, you see Judah not wanting Israel. Ephraim, that comes from the house of Joseph, that makes up the other 10 tribes, to be able to return back to the land of Israel. Because if you cannot prove your Jewish identity or your Jewish ancestry, you're not allowed to enter into the land of Israel. I praise the Father because there are promises in this word. And today we're going to look at those promises in such a powerful way. Wow, I stand in awe, because it's not what man says, it's not what man has programmed, it's not what man has planned. See, Yehudah sold out Joseph with his brothers. They wanted to kill him. They sold him, thinking they would get rid of him, thinking that once and for all they can get rid of him. The same as today. You've got a bunch of Jews in that land trying to build their own tribes, trying to put their own 12 tribes together to bring about the end time, to make people believe that this is the end times, and they're formulating their own tribes, and they're putting their own tribes together and saying this is the tribe that comes from there, and this is the tribe that comes from there. But praise Abba Father, you see the bulk of the lost tribes are sitting amongst the believers. They have come to know Yeshua Messiah, and they do not even understand their identity. But I praise Abba Father because Yeshua came for the lost tribes of the house of Israel. And there is a place for us. And there is a destiny before us. And even though we've been split, but I praise the Father because when the time comes, He's going to gather those houses. One house. So even though we are divided even from our own brothers and sisters in Yeshua Mashiach, we are scattered around the nations of the world. And it's amazing, the minute we come together, we are one house, we are one body, We are one family. That's what I love about being in the land of Israel, especially at the time of the feasts. Oh, Father knows how to gather His lost tribes, and they come from all the different nations, and we speak one language, and we have the same heartbeats. And the minute we come together, automatically we are family. Automatically we know that we are of the same spirit, because we have one vision. We have one mission for the kingdom of Yeshua to come, and we want to be obedient to what He wants, and so we see this unfolding in Genesis chapter 44, where I've spoken about Judah. Judah was the one that was willing to be able to lay himself down. And Judah was the one who we look and we see that Judah saw Joseph, the one whom he sold, and now he's the one who's saying, "You are like Pharaoh." In Genesis 44 verses 18 we read, "And Yehudah came near to him and said, O my master, please let your servant speak a word in my master's hearing, and do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh." He didn't understand the dream that Joseph had. He didn't understand that Joseph was having a dream where the sun, the moon, and the stars were going to bow down to him. All those sheets were going to bow down to him. They didn't remember this dream by now, except for the one who carries the promise within them. The one who carries the promise within them. You are the one that knows the promise that has been given you. You are the one that knows the prophetic word that has been spoken over your life. And you carry that promise within you. And sometimes that promise seems to be so far away, far between, it doesn't even look like it's possible that it could even be fulfilled. And I'm sure when Joseph was being sold into slavery and then being put in jail, I'm sure that dream was the distant thing in the future to say, how on earth? But just like the Father said to me once, I'm not finished with your story. He was not finished with Joseph's story. And I love the story of Joseph because Joseph came from the jail. He came from the pit into the palace. So don't despise your pit. Don't despise your jail. Don't despise your pit, because your pit will eventually become a palace. And it's just like I was sharing with Dylan this morning, my son. I was saying, our time is very limited and very short on this earth. And we are trying as much as possible to try and make everything we can on this earth. And people are living for the moment and living for the hour. And you just need to look around you and see how people are just living for the moment. How sad. Because they do not understand that there is a greater destiny that we're supposed to be living for. So it's not what you're going to achieve on this earth that's important. Who are you going to be in the millennial reign? Do you want to be outside like the dogs? Or do you want to be one who's going to reign and rule with the king? Who do you want to be? Because at the end of the day, that's the vision that needs to be before us. My people perish for the lack of knowledge. If we know the vision that is before us, we understand that whatever we need to give up in this flesh, you've got to give up to go up. So that is why whatever the Father requires of you, whatever you're going to have to go through, whatever you're going to need to give up, it's not about this little bit of time that we got left on this earth anyway. So what if the flesh needs to lay down now? So what if the flesh needs to die? So what? Because when Yeshua comes, that's what we should keep our eyes in. Keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on the fact that Yeshua is coming. And when He comes, He's coming to reign and rule. He's coming to judge the nations of the world. And He's coming to reign and rule. And will we be part of those people that will reign and rule with him? So that's the only way that the things of this world are going to grow strangely dim, is when we keep our eyes on the right perspective. And so we see here in Genesis chapter 44 verses 33, where he says, Judah speaking now, and he says, and now please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a slave to my master, and let the boy go up with his brothers. Judah was willing to lay down his life for his brother. Judah now was willing to be able to lay down his life for his brother Benjamin, that he wasn't willing to do for Joseph. Because by this time he's understood. He's learned. Life teaches you lessons. You know, when people ask me, so what Bible school did you go to? I said, I went to the best Bible school. I went to the Bible school of life. And when the Bible school of life teaches me lessons, they are hard lessons. And I make sure not to repeat them again. Some of them I'm still running around a mountain. But in others, I've learned the hard way. And you see, these brothers have learned the hard way. They are not going to go down that road again. And you see, that's what life teaches us. Life teaches us that at the end of the day, you sow to the flesh, you will reap of the flesh. And here's Judah now wanting to stand up for Benjamin, ready to lay down his life for Benjamin, where he was not willing to do it for Joseph. And this is why we see today the south was made up of the two tribes, Benjamin and Judah. Because Judah was already willing to stand up for his younger brother. And so then we're going to look at chapter 45, because in chapter 45, wow, there's so much lessons to learn in chapter 45. In chapter 45 and verses 3, it says, and Joseph said to his brothers, by this time Joseph is now really battling to control himself, because he sees what is going on. He sees his younger brother. He's in a difficult place. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers were unable to answer him, for they trembled before him. You see, the very one that sold you out in the end is not going to recognize you. Are you going to keep your heart right, though? Then Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. And when they came near, he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Mitzrayim. And now do not be grieved, nor displeased with yourselves, because you sold me here. For Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. How many of us can say that? How many of us understand the plan? You see, because we do not understand the plan of what is before us, we kick up against what the Father wants to do. So sometimes we go through extreme persecution. I mean, when I was reading the story, I couldn't help to read the story, and I was just sharing it with Justin earlier when I said, look and see what happened to Mom. Yeah, we were staying with my oldest son, minding our own business. We weren't trying to minister to anybody there at that house. We weren't trying to push our faith down on their throats. We weren't doing anything of the sort. We were really just minding our own business and just being able to just, being in the shalom. We'd been there for 7 months and enjoying our stay. I was in the cleft of the rock. My room became my cleft of the rock, doing my little messages into the tape recorder, and I was very happy to be there. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get chucked out. Myself, my husband, and Elsie got thrown out of my son's place for no rhyme or reason. Just because of what we stand for. Just because of what we believe in. And at the end of the day, we get thrown out by a woman who happens to be the principal of a Bible school. I mean, not a Bible school, of a Christian school. The Christian school that my children went to. But she knows what we stand for. And this was our persecution. But if I look back and see, where are we today? If I look back 7 months down the line, if I look back and I see almost 7 months down the line, where are we? Wow, what Abba has done. That which in my flesh seemed like a terrible thing, that I still wanted to have my little cry, not understanding what was happening. But Father was taking me out of my comfort zone, sending me ahead into a place that I would have never for the life of me would have wanted to go and stay in. But the Father knew that there was a people. And look what the Father has done. Now there are Wednesday meetings and there's teachings coming forth to a ladies group. Now there are Shabbat meetings and people are coming, and the Father is doing a mighty work. And this would not have been able to have been done if I would have just sat in my little archive there, in my little cleft of the rock, and been about nothing. Now I'm having to minister to people, and I'm out there, and the Father's doing a mighty work, just like Joseph. So do you really understand what the Father is doing? No, you don't have a clue. You're going ahead. You're getting persecuted by your family now because maybe you've gone ahead, but just like what he said, and now do not be grieved nor displeased with yourself, because you sold me here, for Lua sent me before you to preserve life. Because the Father knew if he didn't go ahead, he wasn't going to be able to learn the lessons that he learned in Potiphar's house, to be able to know how to feed all the people in Potiphar's house, go into jail, learn how to feed all the people in the jail. He was in charge of all the food. And so he knew, because why? In verse 6 it says, for 2 years now the scarcity of food has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there is neither plowing nor harvesting. And the Lord sent me before you to preserve you for a remnant in the earth, and to give life to you by a great escape. So you see, the Father will always have a remnant. The Father goes ahead and he raises up leaders, because those leaders are part of the remnant, to be able to bring in the people that need to be brought in, that is part of his remnant people. That word remnant is the word shiarith, which is the word for remnant, which is H7611, which means a remainder, what is left, surviving, that had escaped, be left, remain. So you see, those left behind, not those gone and been raptured. It's not those that have been raptured that is the remnant that is being raptured. They are those that are left. They are those that have been the remainder. They are the surviving ones. They are those that have escaped the great tribulation. They will escape. They will be those that will be left. They will be those that will remain. They will be his remnant people. That's a remnant. But yet we seem to think that the remnant is those that are going to be taken out. Remnant doesn't mean taken out. Remnant means those that have been left. What is left? What is surviving? What has escaped? What's remained? What is the remainder? What are those that have been left? So, those left behind. Now the Left Behind movie tries to tell you that, well, if you're left behind, you missed out on the rapture. But a remnant is those that are going to escape. So praise the Father. The Father is in this Torah portion reading showing us that he needs to be able to have a remnant. And Joseph was sent ahead in order to be able to make sure that there was going to be a remnant that was going to come out of this famine that they were going to go through. The 7 years of leanness, because they had already had 7 fat years, and these were the 7 lean years. And there were still 5 years left by the time that Joseph was going to bring his brothers and his family. And if he did not bring them, there would not have been an Israel. There would not have been a remnant of the house of Israel. They would have all been destroyed in the famine. And so he brings them. So then you did not send, verse 8, so then you did not send me here, but Eloah. So you see, he understood. Can we be mature, prophetically mature in the hour that we're in, to understand that even though they persecute you, they might not understand? I mean, even though right now there's those that persecute me for what I've done with my hair, they do not understand. My own mother does not understand. She doesn't understand what I've done. But you see, that which they don't understand, the Father understands clearly what He's wanting to be done. And this is part of a bigger plan that I don't even have an understanding of right now. I might see in parts. Joseph didn't understand. Joseph had the dream. Joseph didn't understand. He only saw in part. But now he sees in full. And the day will come when right now you might only see in parts. But the day will come when you will see in full, just like Joseph did. We don't know the 3 years ahead of us. We don't know the year ahead of us. We don't even know the next month ahead of us. We don't even know the next few days ahead of us. Our Father doesn't always open our eyes to let us see everything. He gave Joseph the end from the beginning. And sometimes He gives us the end, but He doesn't give us the in-between. Because I can be honest with you. If I were to think of the in-between, I don't think I'd be so quick to want to raise up to the occasion when I think of how much I've had to go through. Father doesn't always give us. He might give us the final picture at the end. You might have the prophetic word of this big prophetic word, but you don't have a clue how you're going to get there. And if you were to know really what you were going to go through, right? And if Joseph had any idea what he was going to go through when he saw the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all those sheaves bowing down to him, I don't think he would have been too quick to raise up to the occasion to say, wow, you're all going to bow down to me. Oh, you see, we've got the nice picture. We might have this big prophetic word, and we might see the big picture and say, wow, this is going to be great. But you don't know the process that you're going to have to go through to get there. And are you willing to allow yourself to not become bitter of heart and hard of heart, but allow the Father to allow you to be pliable in His hand and take you through the process of what you've got to go through so that He can bring you to the other side, because He needs to send you ahead to be able to make sure that you become a light for your family, even though they might not understand right now, even though they're throwing you in the pit right now, even though they're persecuting you right now. They don't see the end picture either, and neither do you, but the Father does, and He understands all things. And so that's why He says, so then you did not send me here, but a lure. And He has sent me for a father to Pharaoh, and a master of all his house, and a ruler throughout the land of Mitzrayim. So Father has got a far greater destiny for those that are obedient, for those whom He's handpicked, for those whom He's chosen. He's got a far greater plan than we can see right now. He's got a far greater plan than we understand right now. He's got a far greater plan. He says, hurry and go to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, Eluah has made me master of all Mitzrayim. Come down to me. Come down to me. Do not delay. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and be near to me, and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. And I shall provide for you there, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, because 5 years of scarcity of food are still to come. So where are the Josephs in this day and age raising up, going ahead of their family members in order to be able to provide for the scarcity of food that's coming? Because famine is on our doorstep, and a great scarcity of food is coming. And that is why right now our family members might scoff at us. Our family members might not even understand, why the heck are you gathering all this food? What are you doing in being able to do the things that you're doing? And it might seem ridiculous in their eyes, and you might tell them things and they might think, oh, please, the Father is the one who's going to protect me, and the Father's the one who's going to do everything. But at the end of the day, if there wasn't a Joseph having to provide for his family, then where would the rest of them be? where would they be with the 5 years that was going to be ahead of them when the famine was going to get more and more severe? And then he turns around and he says, that great escape, let me just go back to Genesis chapter 45 from verses 7 where I spoke about the remnant. To you by a great, so it says, and Elohim sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth and give life to you by a great escape. So you see, the Father is going to send us ahead of our family. The Father's got to be able to send us ahead to bring us to the great escape. And that great escape is the word Pilata, which means deliverance, an escaped remnant. So if he doesn't send a people ahead, then there's not going to be a remnant that's going to escape. So the Father is going to need Josephs that are going to be able to hear what he's telling them to do, and provide. Because at the end of the day, when the famine gets severe, Father will have needed the Josephs in order to be able to have prepared in the famine. Are you a Joseph that's supposed to be preparing for your family, but yet you are still trying to hold on to your own little thing because it's about you, yourself, and your little thing? Joseph wasn't only called to be able to be an escape for his own family. Joseph became an escape for the nations of the world. Father's purpose and plan for our lives is far greater than we can sometimes see. We see the little thing, but the Father sees the greater plan. And he brings them to a land of Goshen. Now that land of Goshen, he says, I shall provide for you there. In verses 10, he tells them to dwell in the land of Goshen. In verse 11, he says, I will provide for you there, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, because 5 years of scarcity of food are still to come. And that land of Goshen, that word Goshen means drawing near. Father needs to take us to a place of where we draw near to him. Hear his voice and do as he says in our land of Goshen. Father is going to bring us to our land of Goshen where we need to draw near to him. Where we need to know that he's the one who goes before us. Where we need to know that he's already gone before us and that he's there. That's our land of Goshen. Father's going to take us to our land of Goshen. He's going to take us out of the places where we are, where there's going to be scarcity of food, and he's going to bring us to our Goshen. We needed to come out of where we were. They were not able to stay where they were. They had to take their flock. They had to take their possessions. Why wouldn't they just stay in Canaan? They could have stayed in Canaan, and Joseph would have just sent supplies there to them. No, they had to come out of where they were and come into Goshen, because they needed to come into a place of where they would be set apart and draw near to the Father. They were going to be set apart in Goshen, which means to draw near. So if we look at Genesis chapter 45 verses 15, and it says, and he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that his brothers spoke with him. Yeah, you see true repentance. Are we willing to kiss those that have persecuted us? Are we willing to embrace our very enemies that have spoken bad about us? Because what we need to understand is that which they meant for bad, the Father meant it for good. The Father had a greater plan. So we must never be too quick to want to be upset, to want to be frustrated, to want to be angry with those who have gone and persecuted us. Because at the end of the day, that which the enemy meant for bad, Father allowed it for good. And the report of it was heard by the house of Pharaoh, saying, the brothers of Joseph have come, and it was good in the eyes of the Pharaoh, in the eyes of the servants. We will even find favor with those around us. When we walk in the fullness of the Father's purpose and plan, even the heathen, even those around us will bless us. We will find favor amongst those, because the Father is going to give us a new identity. The Father is going to raise us up. And the way that the people saw us before is not the way that they're going to see us now. We will have changed our identity. Joseph was no longer Joseph. He had a new name, and he had a new makeup, and he had a new identity. Father is giving his children a new identity. He's changing us. We are being changed from glory to glory. We will be those that very soon are going to be able to radiate his glory. Isaiah chapter 60. We will be those that are going to arise and shine, for our light has come, for the glory of Yahuwah will be seen upon us. Great darkness is going to cover the earth, but they are going to come to the brightness of our light, because we are not going to be the same people. And so if we look now and we see as the story unfolds, and it continues to be able to unfold before us, in Genesis chapter 45, in Genesis chapter 46, we go look at Genesis chapter 46, from verses 1, it says, And Israel sent out with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and slaughtered slaughterings to Elua of his father Yitzhak. You see, the Father wants to bring us to a place of where we will be able to worship him, where he is going to become our dwelling place, that he is going to become a place of where we are going to draw near to him. And, you know, I love the way that Yaakov, even though Yaakov didn't start off very well in the things that he did, and his name, Yaakov, was known as deceiver. But now we get to know him as Israel. And look and see, Israel goes and gives an ascending offering to the Father, knowing his son is alive, knowing that he's going to preserve their lives, that they are taken to a place of where their lives are going to be preserved throughout this hard famine that is hitting them. And he said, I am, and Yahuwah speaks to him. Israel seeks Abba Yahuwah, seeks his face, worships him. Do we seek the Father's face in everything that we do? Even though he's leaving, he's still seeking the Father's face. Or is he with him? He's not going in his own strength. He needs to know that Abba Yahuwah is going before him. And he said, I am El, Elua of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim, for I shall make you there into a great nation. I myself am going down with you to Mitzrayim. So, if we do not pray, how do we know the Father is going with us? We cannot make decisions of the flesh. We cannot decide that we are going to go and that we are going to do this and that we are going to do that if the Father is not the one who goes before us. Wherever it is that the Father is going to send us, we better know that the Father has gone before us, because, Israel prays. Israel is worshipping the Father. He builds him an altar, worships the Father. He wants to know that he's not going in his own strength. He wants to know that Abba Yahuwah is the one who's going before him. So in the time and the days ahead, when the Father tells us to go, we do not go unless the Father go before us. I will send an angel before you that will bring you to the place that I have prepared for you. He's got a place prepared for us. Just like Father had already sent Joseph ahead to preparing the place in Goshen, a place where they were going to draw near to Abba Yahuwah. And he says in verses 46 verses 4, I myself am going down with you to Mitzrayim, and I myself shall certainly bring you up again. And let Yosef put his hand on your eyes. And Yaakov rose up from Beersheba, and he and his sons of Israel brought their father Yaakov and their little ones and their wives in the wagon which Pharaoh had sent to transport them. Even your enemies will bless you. Pharaoh gave them such favor. Daniel had favor even when he was in Babylon. He had favor. Father will give us favor wherever it is that we go, provided that we seek his face, provided that we are willing and obedient, provided that we bow our knee to him and him alone, and not to the gods of Egypt. Joseph stayed faithful to the Father no matter what. We will see how faithful he was to the Father. We see in Genesis chapter 47 now, In Genesis chapter 47, we read from verses 13. Genesis chapter 47 from verses 4, it says, "And they said to Pharaoh, we have come to dwell in the land because there is no pasture for your servants' flocks. For the scarcity of food is severe in the land of Canaan. And now, please, let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen." And the Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Mitzrayim is before you. Settle your father, your brothers in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know of capable men among them, then make them chief herdsmen over my livestock." So now his brothers are even going to become chief herdsmen. They were shepherds of the Pharaoh's livestock. That's where the blessing will supersede you. There was Daniel himself and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that were willing to stand for Abba Yahuwah, but look at the favor that the Father gave them. Look at the favor that the Father gives when there is a willing and an obedient servant who is willing to do what he wants them to do, who is willing to be able to just move as he moves. Bow to him and him alone. And in verses 12 it says, "And Joseph provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with bread for the mouth of the little ones. Now there was no bread in the land, because the scarcity of food was very severe, and the land of Mitzrayim and all the land of Canaan became exhausted from the scarcity of food." So praise Abba Yahuwah. Yeah, we see how Joseph now becomes the one whom the Father has, the remnant of the one that the Father raised, the leader of this remnant that the Father is wanting to be able to save, that goes ahead to bring them from this great escape of this severity of famine that is before them. So I say to you again, are you a Joseph? Has Father raised you up as a Joseph? Have you had to go ahead? Because the Father is wanting to be able to help you, to be able to give you the wisdom that you need, to give you the finances that you need, to give you whatever it is that you need, because you are going to be one that in the time is going to help his people in the time of the great escape, in the time of great famine that is before our very doorstep. As we have heard that this year is going to start the great famine that is going to be a famine of biblical proportion. But then we've got people that turn around and say, "Oh no, we don't need to worry about that." And I say, but you know, if the Father's warned, if the Father has told the prophets to warn the people, then the people have got no excuse to have not prepared. But the Father will have his Josephs that have gone ahead to be able to help the people in the time of need. But to me, what was interesting, if we need to see what's going to happen with this famine that's going to come. And so if we're going to look at Genesis chapter 47 as we continue to read in verses 15, and it says, "And when the silver was all spent in the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan, all the Mitzrites came to Joseph and said, 'Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence, for the silver is gone?'" What is your money going to help you when there is no food? If you've got money now, then you best buy food. Because when the time comes, you will have all the money, but you will not be able to buy food because there will be no food. So if you're trying to hold on to your money now, if you've got your silver and your gold now, what is your silver and your gold going to help you when there is no food? That's why it says that they will throw their silver and their gold in the streets. It will be worth nothing. Your money will be worth nothing. And when they press the button of the great reset, what is your money going to be worth when you don't have it? So if you've got money, then you best make sure that you are hearing the Father to do with it what you should. Because when the time comes, you best make sure that you have prepared. Because what was their silver and their gold going to help them when they didn't have any food? And Joseph said, "Give your livestock, and I give you bread for your livestock, if the silver is gone." You will have to give up all your possessions. You will have to give up everything that you have for you to just survive. And Yosef said, give your livestock and I give you bread for your livestock if the silver is gone. So they brought their livestock to Yosef, and Yosef gave them bread in exchange for the horses and for the flocks they owned, and for the herds they owned, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for all the livestock that year. You know what? If you are going to be able to have whatever your possessions are, it's not going to help you. What are they going to trade with? They're going to trade with food. If you got food, you're going to be able to trade. If you have no food, what are you going to have? So when the scarcity of food comes, what are people going to do? And when that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, we do not hide from our master that our silver is all spent, and our master also has the livestock we owned. There has not been left any before my master but our bodies and our lands. So people are going to sell themselves to the vaccine. Now they have to sell their bodies because everything is gone. So if you're going to want to stay alive, you're going to have to die for your faith, because now they're selling their bodies. And when that year had ended, and so verses 19, why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and let us and our land be servants of Pharaoh, and give us seed, and let us live and not die, and let the land not lie waste. So what do you think is going to happen in the famine ahead? People are going to become slaves to the system of the beast. Because if they're not able to trade, they're not able to buy, they're not able to sell, they're going to sell their souls. They're going to sell their very souls to take a vaccine or to take whatever the mark of the beast is going to be. Whether it be a vaccine, whether it be a mark that you're going to have for you to be able to trade, to buy, to sell, to shop, to do whatever, to access your finances, to do whatever it is, it's going to be a mark. And it's showing you. They first had to sell all their possessions. They first gave all their silver, their gold. Eventually they sold their possessions, their livestock, their animals, their everything. I don't understand. I suppose in those days livestock was not allowed to be eaten, because why were they not killing their livestock to eat? Interesting. Interesting how even the Israelites in the wilderness were not killing their animals. The animals were for the sacrifices for the Father, because they were craving meat. They were craving their meat, and they wanted the quail. He gave them quail. And they were selling their livestock. They were not eating it. And now they got to sell their souls. They got to sell their bodies. And Joseph bought the entire land of Mitzrayim for Pharaoh, because every man of Mitzrites sold his field, because the scarcity of food was severe upon them, and the land came to be Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he moved them into the cities from one end of the borders of Mitzrayim to the other end. Only the ground of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had from what Pharaoh gave them by law, and they ate that which Pharaoh gave them by law. Therefore they did not sell their ground. So only Abba Yahuwah's faithful priests, his faithful remnant, his faithful set-apart ones, they will not sell their souls. They will not sell their bodies, because Abba Yahuwah is going to take care of them. They will have no scarcity. They will be provided for. They will be taken care of. The same as, you see, the priests had no land. Abba Yahuwah was their inheritance. Interesting. Who put this law in place? Joseph would have known the Torah. The priests got fed by the Pharaoh. Just like the priests had no inheritance, Abba Yahuwah was their inheritance. They owned no land. They were being taken care of by Abba Yahuwah. Are you his priest in this day? Are you set apart as his priest? Set apart? Are you still arguing about those things to make you a priest or not a priest. A priest is set apart to be able to be a vessel that carries His presence. Your body becomes a tabernacle for Him. So whatever it was that was not allowed in that tabernacle, neither shall it be allowed in yours if you want to be a priest. No alcohol was allowed in His tabernacle. But then people presume that they are priests. If you are a tabernacle that is carrying His presence, then whatever the laws and the rules were that pertained to the tabernacle, then it pertains to you. But everybody wants to make themselves out to be a priest because they think just because I serve Him, I'm a priest. If you don't adhere to the rules, you can't just become a priest. So at the end of the day, we need to understand that this seems to be the same thing that keeps going around. You need to be a faithful remnant. You need to be a faithful priest. A priest was protected. A priest had food. The Pharaoh was feeding them himself. Abba Yahuwah will feed His priests, His remnant, His set apart people Himself. And it shall be that in the harvest you shall give 1/5 to the Pharaoh, and 4/5 is your own, as the seed of the field, and for your food, for those of your households, and the food of your little ones. Verses 24. So here we see that Pharaoh now basically owns the people and the land, and he owns everything. And that is going to be the beast system. The beast system is going to control everything. They're going to own everything. They're going to control everything. And if you do not bow down to their system and their system of control, then you will be destroyed. So we're now going to read from the book of the prophets, from Ezekiel 37, because, wow, if we really want to understand this Torah portion, we are being raised up to be a faithful remnant unto Abba Yahuwah. And who is this house of Israel? And if you want to turn around and say to me, yeah, but you know, that was for Israel, who am I? Well, we are going to look at the scriptures that we're going to read now. And boy, if there's so much prophetic work, most of the prophetic work that I've had to do in the land of Israel since the Father started sending me to do prophetic work in Israel since 2008. It's everything to do with the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah becoming one house. And all the prophetic work over the last, from Yom Teruah of 2019, we have been in a prophetic season of the two sticks becoming one, which is basically this Ezekiel 37, because we are entering into the end time harvest of this one house made up of 12 tribes, set apart remnant of the Father, the ones that are going to be part of the great escape. So let us read from Ezekiel chapter 37 from verses 15. And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, And you, son of man, take a stick for yourself, and write on it for Yehudah and for the children of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick, and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions. So you see, Joseph represents, he had two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and we will see next week, where Manasseh is the oldest, and he's supposed to receive the blessing of the firstborn. But once again, the blessing doesn't go to the firstborn of Joseph, it goes to the secondborn in Ephraim. And eventually, Israel is going to be known as Ephraim. And now we're going to see the same as it's going to see next week, that exactly like it was with Jacob. Jacob was the secondborn and Esau was the firstborn. But the father did not give the blessing to Esau. He gave the blessing to the secondborn Jacob, which became Israel. And so from Joseph's lineage, there's going to raise up a people that that's going to be known as the house of Israel, that's going to be made up of the 10 tribes, that's going to come from Ephraim. And many times in this Bible it talks about Ephraim, and Ephraim is known as the 10 lost tribes of the house of Israel. Then bring them together for yourself, verses 17, Ezekiel 37. Then take another stick, from verse 6. Then take another stick, write on for Joseph the Ephraim, and for the house of Israel his companions. Then bring them together for yourself into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand. So you see, Joseph was Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions. So there's the house of Ephraim and the house of Israel, but together they're one house. And when the children of your people speak to you, saying, won't you show us what you mean by this? Say to them, thus says the Master Yahuwah, see, I'm taking the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his companions, and I shall give them unto him with the stick of Yehudah. So you see, there's Yehudah, and Ephraim is known as the stick that's symbolic of the house of Israel that makes up the 10 tribes. And Yehudah was the house of Judah that was with Benjamin. That was the south. And the house of Israel was the split between Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Rehoboam stayed with the southern kingdom in the book of Kings that we read. The son of Solomon. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. Jeroboam was the one whom the father raised up, and he said, you would lead, you will become king over the house of Israel, which was the other 10 tribes, and you will be king over them. And he went up north. But Jeroboam went astray, because Jeroboam got worried, and then he started his own feasts and built his own temple, and built a different place for the Israelites to be able to worship, and then took them into pagan worship in the end. And that's where the house of Israel got completely lost. And as a matter of fact, since the house of Solomon, there has never been 12 tribes ever again. To this day, there's no 12 tribes, because the 12 tribes got split. Because Rehoboam stayed with the southern kingdom, which was made up of the house of Israel and the house of Judah, and then the lost tribes went up north, and from there they eventually landed up going into Syria and got totally integrated, and they basically got lost. But the Father had a plan. Praise the Father, he always has a plan. He sent his Joseph as his son Yahushua. That's why Joseph is a type of Yahushua, who came, who went ahead to be able to bring us back from that which we fell from. So, and verse 20, and the sticks on which you write shall be in your hand before their eyes. And speak to them, thus says the Master Yahuwah, see, I'm taking the children of Israel from among the nations, wherever they have gone, and shall gather them from all around, and I shall bring them into their land. Praise the Father, there's the promise. We are scattered throughout the nations of the world, but guess what? We are coming back to our land. And I shall make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one sovereign shall be sovereign over them all, and let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided into two reigns. So you see, they were two reigns, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. They were two reigns. The house of Ephraim and the house of Judah were two reigns, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And this has never been, they've never become one since this time. So this is prophetic of what needs to come. The dry bones need to become alive. And I shall cleanse them. Now look what he says. And I shall know, and they shall no longer defile themselves with their idols. So they shall no longer be true reins, and they shall no longer defile themselves with their idols, nor with their disgusting matters, nor with any of their transgressions. And I shall save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I shall cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Eloah. While David my servant is sovereign over them. And they shall all have one shepherd, and walk in my right rulings, and guard my laws, and shall do them. And they shall dwell in the land. So you see, while David my servant is sovereign over them, David, his servant, had already died. So who's going to be David, his servant, that's going to rule over them? The one who's going to come in the lineage of David, the one who's going to come from the lineage of the tribe of Yehudah, which is Yeshua himself, who's going to reign and rule over us. But listen to what he says, and they shall all have one shepherd. Abba, Yahuwah has given us Yahushua, our perfect shepherd. And we will all walk in his right rulings and guard his laws. So if you are just a believer, who's just a Christian, and you are not guarding his laws, you cannot be part of this house, because this house is guarding his laws and his right rulings and doing them. And they have a shepherd. And the shepherd is the one shepherding them. And the shepherd is the one teaching them his right rulings. And the shepherd is the one going ahead. And the shepherd is bringing them back to being able to keep that which was lost from the beginning. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given to Yaakov my servant, where their fathers dwelt, and they shall dwell in it, they and their children and their children's children forever. And my servant David be their prince forever. Praise Abba Father. And I shall make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant it is with them. And I shall place them and increase them, and shall place my set-apart place in their midst forever. Praise the Father that he's going to have his tabernacle amongst us. Do you see? Did I not say to you, what are you walking towards? Are you worrying about what this world is to give you? Are you worrying about what this next maybe 3.5 years has got to give you? And you're still living for this life? There is a millennial reign. And there is going to be an everlasting covenant. And there is going to be a prince. And his name is Yahushua Mashiach. The one who's going to shepherd and rule and reign over us. The one who's going to be able to lead us and guide us and protect us. The one who's been given a rod of iron to be able to shepherd his people. And the nations shall know, and my dwelling place shall be over them, and I shall be their Eloah, and they shall be my people. And the nation shall know, and the nation shall know that I am Yahuwah. I am setting Israel apart when my set-apart place is in their midst forever. So praise the Father, he's going to put his tabernacle there. And his tabernacle will be our ruling, and it will be able to be his tabernacle that he's going to put there forever. That will be in our midst. And he's going to put his king, his shepherd, to shepherd the people. And all the nations of the world will know that we are his people. So what is it that you need to give up? What is it that you need to lay down? What is so important that you cannot lay down for you to be able to lay down in this life now, for you to be able to receive the fullness of the things that the Father has got for you to be able to receive? Let's go and read Matthew chapter 10 so that we can see, because now we're reading this and you're going to say, but yeah, Natalia, that's not me. No, Esther, you know what? That's not me. That is not me. You know, that's for the house of Israel. Okay, so let us go and read. What did your Messiah say in Matthew chapter 10? Let's go to Matthew chapter 10 from verses 5 to 6 and see what he says in Matthew chapter 10 from verses 5 to 6. It says, Yeshua sent these 12 out, having commanded them, saying, do not go into the way of the nations, and do not enter a city of Shimronim. As you go, proclaim, saying, the reign of the heavens has drawn near. But he says, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So when Yeshua started his reign, where did he start? Did he go into Jerusalem? Did he go into the mountains of Hebron? Did he go into the surrounding places of Jerusalem? Or did he start his ministry in Galilee? Did he start his ministry in the north? He started his ministry in the north because that's where the lost tribes of the house of Israel were. And he gathered his disciples that came from there, not from the south. He gathered them from the north. And he came. He says, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now go to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15, verses 24. What does it say in verse 24? And he answering said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's why the prodigal son is so powerful. I have a teaching on the YouTube channel that is called The Prodigal Son. One of the most powerful teachings that I have done, which will explain to you very clearly who you are. Part of the house of Israel and the prodigal son. It explains so beautifully. Let's go and read Romans chapter 9 so that we can understand the fuller picture for you to be able to say, but you know what? I'm not part of this house. I'm not part of this house. I'm just a Gentile. I'm not part of this house of Israel. So now you need to understand, are you grafted in? Are you not grafted in? Who are you? Let's read from Romans. Chapter 9. We're going to read from verse 1. I speak the truth in Messiah. I do not lie, my conscience also bearing me witness in the set-apart spirit, that I have great sadness and continual grief in my heart, for I myself could have wished to be banished from Messiah for the sake of my brothers, my relatives according to the flesh. Who are the children of Israel? Now he's saying, who are the children of Israel? To whom is the adoption and the esteem and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the worship and the promises? Whose are the fathers, from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh? Who is over all? Alua blessed forever. Amen. However, it is not as though the word of Alua has failed, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. You see, they are not all Israel. Just because they call themselves Jews doesn't mean they're all Jews. Neither are they all children, because they are the seed of Abraham. But in Yitzhak your seed shall be called. So in Yitzhak your seed shall be called. That is, those who are the children of the flesh. So at the end of the day, there are those who were the children of Abraham, but they came via Ishmael. They need to come via Yitzhak, not via Israel, via Ishmael. So there are many now that say, but we also are the children of Abraham. But they are the children of Abraham that come via Yitzhak. And there are children of Abraham that are via the flesh. So let us look and see. That is those who are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of Alua, but the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. For this is the word of the promise. At this time I shall come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only so, but Rivkah, having conceived by one, our father Yitzhak. Yet before they were born, or had done any good or evil, in order that the purpose of Alua, according to choice, he chose Yaakov, might stand, not of works, but of him who calls. So let's not forget, the Father is the one who does the work. It's he who chooses. He chose Joseph. He chose Yaakov and not Esau. It was said to him, the greater shall serve the lesser. As it has been written, Yaakov I have loved, but Esau I have hated. Because Esau was one who symbolized the flesh. And then shall we say, is there unrighteousness with Alua? Let it not be. For he says to Moshe, I shall favor whom I favor, and I shall have compassion on whom I have compassion. Who are you to talk back to Abba Yahuwah and say what he may or may not do? Who are you, beloved? So then it is not of him who is wishing, nor of him who is running, but of Allah who shows favor. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, for the same purpose I have raised you up, to show my power in you, and that that my name be declared in all the earth. So then he favors whom he wishes, and he hardens whom he wishes. Then you shall say to me, why does he still find fault, he who has resisted his counsel? But who are you, O man, to talk back to Allah? Shall that which is formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? Does not the potter have authority over the clay, from the same lump to make one vessel for value and another for not for value? And if Allah desired to show wrath, to make his power known, with much patience tolerance the vessel of wrath prepared for destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his esteem on vessels of compassion, which he has prepared beforehand for esteem, even whom he called not only us of the Yehudim, but also all of the nations, And he says in Hosea 2, see, he says in Hosea, I shall call them my people who were not my people, and her beloved who was not beloved. So you see, he's going to gather others that were not his people. And it shall be in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. There they shall be called sons of the living Allah. And Yeshayahu cries out on behalf of Israel, though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, the remnant shall be saved. So even though there is a number that's as the sand of the sea, there's a remnant that shall be saved. For he is bringing a matter to an end, and is cutting it short in its righteousness, because Yahuwah shall cut short a matter on the earth. And as in Yeshayahu said before, if Yahuwah of hosts had not left us a seed, we would have been like Sodom, and we would have been like Amorah. So you see, the Father saved a seed through Joseph, sending Joseph ahead. Otherwise they might have all perished. But he saved a seed. Now let's go and read Romans chapter 11. Romans chapter 11. The famous grafted in scriptures. We're going to read from verses 13. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand that the Father has selected those. He says that there will be a house, a faithful remnant house, the house of Israel. And that house of Israel is not what many people think is only Jews. We need to understand that the house of Israel is made up of a people that have been grafted in. So if you've been grafted in, you are part of that house. If you've been grafted in. So, I'm just trying to get out of the sun of here. Sure, it's hot. Let's read from verses 13. For I speak to you, the nations, inasmuch as I am an emissary to the nations, I esteem my service. If somehow I might provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh, and save some of them. For if their casting away is the restoration to favor of the world, what is their acceptance but life from the dead? So these Christians that want to bring a replacement theology and says, we have replaced Israel now. We are the true Israel now. Israel has been cut off, and because they were cut off, they disobeyed, and now we are Israel. The Christians are Israel. That's what the Catholic Church taught, and that is what a lot of the Christian churches have taught. But praise the Father that there is awakening, a great awakening that has taken place, and that people are understanding that they need to be able to return back to the truth. And the truth is that there still stands a house. And that the land of Israel is still the Father's land, and that He's got a people. And if their casting away is the restoration to favor of the world, what is their acceptance but life from the dead? Now if the first fruit is set apart, the lump is also. And if the root is set apart, so are the branches. So, Yeshua being that lump, he is the original olive tree. He's the lump. He's the actual stem. And the first fruits are those of the original that came from Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. The house of Israel that came through there. And if some of these branches were broken off, and you being a wild olive tree, so there is a proper olive tree, the original olive tree, which is where Yeshua comes from, and then there's a wild olive tree. And we are that wild olive tree. So if you were not part of the house of Israel in terms of being able to come from the original seed, look, I know, I come from the original seed, but there are some of us that do not come from the original seed. There are some of us that don't know if we come from the original seed or not. It doesn't matter, because look what he says. And if you of the branches were broken off, and you being a wild olive tree have been grafted in among them, and came to share the root and the fatness of the olive tree. So now you are being grafted into that original olive tree, into the original house, through Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. To that house of the 12 tribes. You are being grafted into that. Do not boast against the branches. And if you boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. So we need to be very careful, that we need to understand that they are the original root. They can come back at any time. I mean, there is nothing more powerful than to see one of my brothers and sisters, especially. That's why when I would be at the Western Wall, and I would sit there at that Western Wall, I would pray and say, Father, open their eyes that they may come into the kingdom, that they would see you. And when they come in, they are so faithful in the way they pray, much more faithful than we would ever be. They know what it's like to be able to keep ways of Torah. They know what it's like to be able to pray. They are used to praying 3 times a day. They pray their Siddur. They understand the scriptures, even though they've got a lot of religion that goes with it. But when one of them truly come in, they are faithful. You shall say then, verses 19, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Good. By unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear. So you see, these Christians are arrogant now, that they think, yeah, but they were broken off, so now we are grafted in. In their arrogance, they themselves are going to be falling by the wayside. For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. So you see, if he didn't even spare his natural branches, then he's not going to spare you either, if you're going to boast. For if Elohim did see then the kindness and the sharpness of Elohim on those who fell sharpness, but towards you kindness, if you continue in his kindness, otherwise you also will be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, shall be grafted in, for Elohim is able to graft them in again. So you see, they have been cut off because they have not received Messiah Yeshua. But it's okay, because when their eyes are opened, they will be saved in one day when their eyes are opened, and they will look upon the one whom they pierced, and they will all be saved because he closed their eyes so that the fullness of the Gentiles could come in. For if you were cut off, if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? So you see, Father is going to gather them. Don't worry about Brother Yehuda. Brother Yehuda will come in. At the appointed time, Brother Yehuda is going to come in. That's why the shaking needs to come. That's why the shaking is going to come, so that they can bow their knee and turn back to him. For I do not wish you to be ignorant of the secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardness in the part has come over Israel until the completeness of the nation. So you see, he hardened them so that the completeness of the nations has come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it has been written. The deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Yaakov. Praise the Father. Who's the deliverer? Yeshua is going to come. While they are waiting for a second coming, we are waiting for a second coming. And this is my covenant with them, when I take away their sins. And that is the renewed covenant that He's going to give us by giving us the Ruach of Yahuwah. And so right now they have the Torah of the flesh. We are receiving the Torah of the Spirit, because we have received the Ruach of Yahuwah to be able to have Torah written upon the tablets of our hearts. So praise the Father. He says, truly as regard the good news, they are enemies for your sake, but concerning the choice, they are beloved for the sake of the fathers. For the gift and the calling of Eluah are not to be repented of. For as you also as one time disobeyed Eluah, but now have obtained compassion through their disobedience. So through their disobedience, we have obtained compassion. So also these have now disobeyed, that through the compassion shown you, they also might obtain compassion. For Eluah has shut them all up to disobedience in order to have compassion on all. So see, He's brought the whole lot. So, praise the Father. He's the one who's going to bring back His lost tribes. He's the one who's gathering His house. So we will end off with Ephesians chapter 2, because Ephesians is so powerful that it explains how Yeshua has come to be able to bring the two houses to become one house, for us to be able to understand what does He say in Ephesians. But we're going to read it so that we don't read it the way it's being read in these other Bibles, that comes to be able to think that He's come to do away with the Torah and everything else. So praise the Father that we will have light on these scriptures. So it says from Ephesians 2 verses 9, verse 8, for by favor you have been saved through belief, that not of yourselves, it is a gift of Eluah. It is not by works, so that no one should boast. So you see, salvation was a free gift. It's nothing that you worked for. He's given it you for free. Sanctification is going to cost you everything. He says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So the salvation was a free gift that He's given you. For we are His workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua, not unto good works, which Eluah prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them. So you see, He's already prepared good works beforehand, that we should walk in them. Therefore remember that you once nations in the flesh, who are called the uncircumcision, by which is called the circumcision made in the flesh by hands. So you see, before we were called the uncircumcision, we were the nations. We were the Gentiles, those whom they called the Gentiles. Now, to be a Gentile, if you call yourself a Gentile, then that is not a good word for you to use, because a Gentile is one without Eluah, one without Yah. So you are no longer one without. You have received Yeshua Mashiach, so you've come back to understanding who Abba Yahuwah is. And we were of the flesh. We were uncircumcised of the flesh. Now we become circumcised by flesh. Because why? It's the circumcision of the hearts. And we are being restored back to Torah. Our hearts are being circumcised by the Torah. It's a covenant that's been made. That at that time you were without Messiah, excluded from the citizenship of Israel. So you see, we were without a Messiah. We were just known as being Gentiles. We were without a Messiah, and we were excluded from the citizenship of Israel, because it came from Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov. There was a lineage of a people. It was a house, and that was the lineage that the Father put there. It was a covenant that was made with the house of Israel. And being Gentile, you were not part of that covenant. So we were excluded. We were strangers from the covenants of promise, having no expectation and without Eluah in the world. So you see, the nations of the world did not know Eluah. The nations of the world were not part of the covenant that was made with Eluah, because the covenant was made with the house of Israel. But now listen. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who once were afar off have been brought near by the blood of the Messiah. So praise the Father, you that were once far off, you were not part of that covenant. You were not part of those promises. You were not part of the covenant that was made on Mount Sinai that says, if you will obey this covenant, then you will be my treasured possession. You will be my segula, set apart, my treasured possession. My segula people, my treasured possession. You will be a house of priests. That was not for us, because it was given to the house of Israel, because they were given the covenant. They were given the Torah. We were not. But by the blood of Messiah, we have been brought in. Now listen to what he says. Verse 14. For he is our peace, who has made both one, and having broken down the partition of the barrier. So we that were part of the lost tribes, that have served other gods, that have had other idolatrous ways, that didn't know the ways of Abba Yahuwah, that didn't know the covenant of Abba Yahuwah, that didn't know the commands of Abba Yahuwah. We were afar off. We were not part of that covenant. We were not part of that blessing of that covenant. Now look at what he says in verses 15. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity. So in his flesh Yeshua came. In his flesh Yeshua came to abolish the enmity, the Torah of the commands in the dogma, not the Torah of his word. He didn't abolish in his flesh the Torah of the written word of Yahuwah. He abolished the Torah of the flesh, of the dogma, of the man's customs and traditions that was given by man, so as to create in himself one renewed man from the two, thus making peace. So there's no longer Jew nor Gentile. There becomes one new man. That's the new man of Ezekiel 37, the dry bones that are going to come alive, the two houses that become one house. And to completely restore to favor both of them unto Eloah in one body, through the stake having destroyed the enmity by it. So you see, everything that came, the curse of that Torah that came from the man-made custom and tradition, now through the blood of Yeshua Mashiach, we have grace to be able to say no. We have the grace to be able to say, I will now keep Torah by His grace. We have been given the Ruach of Yahuwah to be able to keep Torah. There's no more excuse. According to, we'll read it in Hebrews chapter 10. Because now we've been given grace to have no excuse for us not to keep Torah, because we now have the Torah of grace. And having come, He brought us good news, peace to you who were far off, and peace to those near, because through Him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. So you see, now we can return back to the Father through the Ruach, because now the Ruach writes the Torah upon the tablets of our hearts. So then you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens of the set-apart ones and members of the household of Eloah, having been built upon the foundation of the emissaries and the prophets, Yeshua Messiah Himself being chief cornerstone. Praise the Father, He's our chief cornerstone, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a set-apart dwelling place in Eloah. So we are being built into a set-apart place, a temple for His dwelling, in whom you also are being built together into a dwelling of Eloah in the Spirit. So you see, how are you going to be His tabernacle? Because you are now becoming His priest. So who is going to be able to go through the scarcity of food? Those becoming the tabernacle for His dwelling. Those who understand, who are walking in the fullness of His Torah. And if you want to turn around and say, oh no, but that means that the Torah has been done away with. Okay, then let's just quickly go to Titus. Let's quickly just go to Titus. Timothy. Titus 2, verse 11. Titus 2, verse 11 says, for the saving gift of Eloah, now the saving gift is for the grace of Eloah, has appeared to all men. So His grace, we've been given the Spirit of grace, we've been given the Ruach of Yahuwah, which is now we have no more excuse to be able to keep the Torah, because it's now the Torah, no longer the Torah of a flesh, but it's the Torah of the Spirit, written upon the tablets of our hearts by His Ruach. And Mashiach, Yeshua, leading us by the hand, helping us to be able to walk out fullness of Torah. instructing us to renounce wickedness and worldly lusts and to live sensibly, righteously. What does it mean to live righteously? Righteousness is upholding and keeping Torah, and reverently in this present age, looking for the blessed expectation and esteemed appearance of the great Elua, our Savior, Yeshua Mashiach. So see, Yeshua Mashiach, we're looking for the great expectation of the second coming of Yeshua Mashiach, who gave himself for us. Now look, he gave himself for us to do what? To redeem us from all lawlessness. What is lawlessness? Lawlessness is the word anomia, which means one without Torah. That is what lawlessness is. So he came to redeem us from all lawlessness. He came to redeem us from Torahlessness and to cleanse for himself a people. So he came to cleanse himself a people, his own possession, ardent for good works. So he's come to cleanse himself a remnant of people who are going to do the good works, his exploits on the earth. Now let's look at Hebrews chapter 10. In Hebrews chapter 10, let's read from verses 26, in case you want to turn around and say to me, oh, but we no longer need the Torah because we've got the Spirit. Okay, so let's read Hebrews chapter 10, verses 26. For if we sin purposely, after we have received the knowledge of the truth. So if we continue to break his commands, and we continue to sin purposely, after we've received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment, and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. That's the judgment that's going to come upon the earth for those who will continue to disobey. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah. Okay, so let's look at what the Torah brought. So anyone who disregarded the Torah of Moshe, the Torah that was given to Moshe by the Father, dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. Now, when Yeshua came, we're not dying if we break the command. I mean, if we break the Sabbath right now, we're not being put to death. If you broke the Sabbath under the Torah before, you would be put to death. Now we're not being put to death. If you committed adultery, you would be put to death. Imagine if there was being put to death today for committing adultery. I think there would be a lot less adultery and there would be a lot less fornication in the day that we live in today if we were living under the Torah. But you see, we have the Ruach that teaches us to say no to sin. That teaches us to say no, because he's working in us both to will and to do Father's good pleasure. So, under the Torah that was given to Moses, you were put to death under the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Now, look at what he says in verses 29. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the son of Elua underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant? So you see, he gave us the blood of Yeshua to bring us back into the covenant with him, and he did away with the enmity, the curse of the law. He did away with the curse where you are not being put to death now immediately once you transgress the Torah. That's the curse that was there. But through the blood, we have the grace to say no and to do what is right because we have the Spirit of grace. Now look at what he says. How much worse punishment do you, the son of Elua, if you trampled the son of Elua underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which ye were set apart as common, and insulted the Spirit of favor, the Spirit of grace. So if you insult the Spirit of grace, the Spirit of grace that we've received, that we trample it underfoot. For we know him who has said, vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah, and again Yahuwah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of a living Elua. But remember the former days when, after you were enlightened, you endured a great struggle with suffering. So you see, it's a great struggle, and it comes with suffering, to be able to walk his ways, to be able to walk his truths. It comes with sufferings. And on the one hand, you were exposed to reproaches and pressures, and on the other hand, you became sharers with those who were so treated. So, at the end of the day, we need to understand, you see, let's look at verse 36. So, verse 35, do not then lose your boldness, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the desire of Eloah, you receive the promise. So there we go. Verse 37, for yet a little while, he who is coming shall come and shall not delay. That is the word for the hour. He who is coming shall come, and he will not delay. But the righteous shall live by belief. But if anyone draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we are not those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of life. So are we going to draw back when the scarcity of food comes? Are we going to draw back because in Israel now they are queuing up to take this vaccine, lining up, can't wait to take the vaccine because they want freedom of flesh? We are going to have to struggle. We are going to go through difficulties. But are we those that are going to draw back? Or are we those that are going to endure? Because a faithful remnant is going to endure till the end. So praise Abba Father for His word in this day. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you for this word, and I thank you for this Torah portion reading, and I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your love, and I thank you for your mercy. I thank you for your plan. I thank you that just as you sent Joseph to be able to be one who went ahead, to be able to prepare for his people that needed to come in, one who went ahead to bring preparation so that there would be a great escape, that there would be a remnant that would come out for the house of Israel, that Jacob and his 12 sons would be able to come forth and bring forth the house of Israel. Father, so have you sent us Yahushua Mashiach, the one who's gone ahead, the Joseph of our hour, the one who we have today, the one who's gone ahead of us, the one who's going to gather a remnant unto himself that is going to make up the true house of Israel, that will be the two sticks that will become one, according to Ezekiel 37, that you will have a faithful remnant, a faithful people that are going to be able to inhabit the land of Israel, and you are going to put your tabernacle in our midst. And until that day comes when we will come and reign and rule with you, until that time of when you are going to make your dwelling place in our midst, you are looking for a people that will become your dwelling place. You are looking for a faithful priesthood. You are looking for a priesthood that will be set apart, that will be able to become a tabernacle where you will dwell, where you may dwell. Abba, I pray that we become that faithful remnant. That faithful remnant that may be able to become a tabernacle for your dwelling place. And so I thank you for your word, Father. I thank you that we will become your faithful remnant, your faithful servants that will hear your voice and move as you move. That you will bring us to a place of Goshen, a place where we may be able to come and draw from you, draw near to you. We need a Goshen. We need a place, a Goshen place, where we can draw near to you, where we know that you are the one that will go before us, and you are the one that will dwell in our midst, and that we can draw near to you there. That even though the things of this world are going to grow darker, we can grow lighter in the light that you have to give us, so that we may be able to be a faithful remnant that will serve you. And so I thank you for your word, and I thank you for your Shabbat. And I thank you that you will continue to lead us by the hand and take us through step by step, so that we may be those that will be able to seek your face no matter what. And that we will be able to be those that even though we suffer, even though we will be persecuted, even though people do not understand, but we look towards the mark of Ezekiel 37, that we will be a house that will be gathered together to be able to reign and rule with one shepherd that will shepherd us. How we look forward to that day. Thank you that we were those wild olive branches, a wild olive tree, but you have grafted us in, and that you've made a way for us into that promise, that it's not only for those that are of the actual house, the actual natural seed, the natural seed of Abraham, but that we too are those that may be grafted in. And I thank you for making room for us, Abba. Thank you for teaching us your way. Thank you for giving us your Torah. Thank you for giving us the Ruach, your Ruach, to be able to be the Spirit of grace that leads us and guides us and will teach us. Your grace that goes before us in everything to teach us what is pleasing to you. So I thank you for this in Yahushua Mashiach's name. Amen.